Boy, isn't that a pretty belt?
I love it.
It is great. It's so nice looking, and I love it. And there's so much history that's tied to it. And you think of all the guys that have held that title, and, you know, it shares a lot of similarities with the guys who have held Sweet Charlotte. But it's really bringing back something that I think's kind of been lacking for a little while, and to bring that television title and to have it in the spotlight in the way that it really deserves to be, with like the upper echelon of talent that we have on NWA Powerrr. I think it's what the title deserves, for one, based on the history that you have with that title. But it's also what the fans deserve to see. You know, I spent many years doing commentary for David Marquez's program, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, which is still going very strong. And they actually just are going to start airing episodes out of the ABC station in San Francisco. So I'm very proud for all the guys out there that are still on that program and are putting that together week after week. But what I think was so great about that program is the entire time I was there until now, they've had the Heritage Championship, which is sort of their big main championship, and then they had the Television Championship. And I could tell you, calling the matches that I did there for several years, those Television Championship matches were fantastic. And we got fantastic guys who come in and work those matches, and a lot of guys that are all over the place, and you might see them in NWA Powerrr, and you've seen them in other places like Ring of Honor and whatnot. And so when you have that thing that this is our broadcast and this is our broadcast championship, it just puts a whole different focus on it. And it really gives a lot of guys something else to fight for, which is what we really want.
Very, very cool. I love that it's the old school TV title everybody remembers, everybody can see. It's so cool, and it has that history, and it has that old school feel. And obviously, so does the studio. The GPB studios in Atlanta, Georgia, obviously it being in Atlanta. Is that a huge part of kind of what's making it so successful? Is that old school feel, and those old school fans are dying for that?
I think it really is. I think it's a combination of a couple of things. One is that you've got a lot of people out there that want that old school feel, and we're definitely delivering that. You can go on the WWE Network and watch Georgia Championship Wrestling and see the similarities that you could see from that program and the program we have today. You can see it pretty clearly. But then again, you've got a lot of other fans out there that just want something that's different. And that's one thing you could definitely say about our program, is it's very different than what you're typically seeing on Monday nights or Wednesday nights or Friday nights. And that's not to disparage anything of what the other guys are doing. I love what all the other, industry is doing right now. I mean, whether it's WWE or whether it's Ring of Honor or whether it's New Japan, especially right now, making all the moves that they're making in especially here in the United States, it's all great. But we're offering something that's has a very different look, a very different feel, and it's really pulled in a lot of people to it and resonate with it. And I think the thing that helps it too is that with the studio format, our shows are a little less than an hour for the most part, and it's digestible, and you can watch it whenever. And it's easy to watch it. It's free. You don't need to have a credit card and sign up or anything like that. Everybody can, go on YouTube for free. They can make an account with YouTube, and it's free. And you can watch it anywhere you want at any time you want. And it's easy. And I think the fact that it's easy to do and the product is so different is really propelling us and really growing our fan base. I mean, every week I'm getting new people that are following me on social media, and a lot of them are coming from places like the Netherlands or Italy or India. And who knew that, all these folks out there were waiting for something like our program.
That's really cool. A lot of worldwide fans. And I think it's very, it's very different, obviously, the feel, the look, everything, but it is that old school thing that the fans kind of clamor for and they want. But as far as the announcing, always was great, obviously, with Jim Cornette and yourself was great, but now with Stu Bennett joining the crew, I feel like somehow, and I actually talked to Tim Storm recently about this, somehow it's different, but it's still just as good. It's interesting because you didn't expect that from Stu Bennett. He only had a little bit of experience doing color commentary, but what do you think about Stu Bennett?
Well, Stu Bennett actually had a lot of experience doing commentary way back in the day over in England with the programs over there. So he's no stranger to putting on a headset and calling action. And I was so impressed with the fact that we had such immediate chemistry when it came, because, I mean, we both came in. It was late at night, so we didn't even get a chance to see each other like the day before, which I would have kind of liked, just sit down, put, down a pint of Guinness together and just kind of chat a little bit. That way you could kind of feel things out. But we didn't even get that opportunity. So we had, a few hours throughout the day doing prep work, and we kind of talked back and forth, and we kind of, fake calling matches or something for a little bit, just for a few minutes. And we kind of just decided, all right, you're going to do these parts, you'll do these parts, and blah, blah, blah. But then as soon as the light went on, I mean, bam, like it was just there. And I mean, the guy's a total pro. And it's fantastic working with him, and I think everybody was really impressed with what he had to offer. And, I mean, everybody's, he was put in a position that's, in all honesty, a little bit awkward, because you're coming into a position taking over for a guy who's arguably the best at talking into a microphone that there ever is, that there ever was on the planet Earth. I mean, you could say whatever you want about Jim Cornette and the things that he says and the history that he's had and the controversy that has been surrounding him, but man, can that guy talk. And he can call wrestling, especially from that color position. So Stu had to go into that, knowing that was going to be, the spotlight's going to be on him a little hot. But, boy, he just knocked it right out of the park. And he's so good. And I know, and you'll actually hear it right now, because I'm going to hit the mute to cough a second. All right, sorry about that. I had some real bad laryngitis towards the end of these tapings, and he really had to jump into the driver's seat because he had to, and he had no problem doing it. So I think it's great. I think what we've seen is it's only going to get better, and I can't wait to call the pay-per-view in this next round of NWA Powerrr tapings.
As far as Jim Cornette, do you think that, I don't want to get into the politics of it and all that, the backstage stuff. I mean, who cares about that? Or, let's move on past that. But you think that took away at all from the show? Because everyone kind of kept talking about him. They weren't talking about the show. Now it seems like the focus is back on the show. Did that take away at all from NWA Powerrr?
I think it did for a little bit. And I think what it did is it put our show in a negative light. And nobody wants that, especially the people who are at the very top. And so the decisions had to be made that were made. And, I wish the best for Jim. I mean, obviously, the NWA Powerrr was not the first time I worked with Jim. We were working together at the 70th anniversary show, and we also worked the Crockett Cup together. And, I spent a lot of time talking to Jim and learning from Jim. And my guy's an absolute encyclopedia of professional wrestling. But at the end of the day, I think we really have bounced back from that lull that we hit after the Jim Cornette situation, and you had so many people going on social media saying, we're not going to watch this program anymore, and blah, blah, blah. I personally believe a lot of those people weren't watching the program in the first place anyways. And so we were getting a lot of negative social media stuff, as justified as it is, from folks that probably weren't our fan base anyways. And if we have lost people that were just hardcore Cornette fans, and they were only watching the program because of Jim Cornette, then, okay, guys, enjoy the podcast, Cult of Cornette every week. It'll be great, and you guys will be fine, and we'll just make new fans. And we've done that, and we've bounced back from that, I think, quite well.
Yeah, Into the Fire was a very popular pay-per-view, but so far, according to what we're hearing, Hard Times is going to be even more popular and are starting to gain that traction again, are starting to gain those fans, are starting to get some attention. You feel, like you said, you feel the momentum swinging, you feel everything's kind of headed in the right direction?
I really do. And I think especially after, like, the surprise we had this past week with, at the very end of the program, who's the third man on the team, and here comes Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner, down the stairwell. I mean, I think they're really excited for the surprises that we have in store for them. And, a lot of the guys that are involved in the television title tournament, but there's still 2 open spots. that are going to be people who have not been featured on NWA Powerrr as of yet. And I think people are really excited to see who we could bring to that table, because it could be potentially anyone. I mean, you look at, we've got, the Rock and Roll Express. You got Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, and these guys are going just as hard as they were when they were in their 20s. And so the options out there are fantastic right now, because there is such a huge talent pool of people who are fantastic workers, and they're fantastic on the mic, and maybe they don't have a good fit in a particular organization, but they can come with us and they can thrive. And I think what you're really going to see coming up with Hard Times is some really big surprises. And I think that's what's really driving people to make those pre-order buys now.
It's going to be a huge, huge show. It's just so cool. What do you think about Nick Aldis as NWA champion? I mean, it seems like he just keeps getting better and better. He seems like the perfect fit, seems like the perfect guy, but what's your take on him? Nick
Aldis has really had, look, he walks the walk and talks the talk, and everything that he says is legit. We have, as far as the storyline goes on NWA Powerrr, obviously we're not eye to eye with a lot of things, but if you just kind of look at it from an analytical perspective, from the point to where the feud started with Tim Storm on the 10 Pounds of Gold series to where we are today, that doesn't happen without Nick Aldis. It doesn't happen without the Aldis Crusade, where he defended it in the championship in 20 different countries or whatever it was. It doesn't happen without him. He's a monumental talent. He wears the 10 Pounds of Gold proudly. And if you go and you listen to the cold open of the last episode, there's a line that I use there when I'm interviewing Ricky Morton, that Nick Aldis wants to be on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest world champions of all time. And I think that is true, and I think that he wouldn't mind it if he was in all four of the spots. That's how much he wants to be the best of all time at what he is. And Nick Aldis is the kind of dude that has the drive to get there. There are people out there that, you got talent, and you can hit the gym as much as you want, but it's about having that drive that pushes you forward to make you want to hold on to the 10 pounds of gold and then hold it in such high regard and get the respect that deserves. And Nick Aldis is the guy to do it. And I got to tell you, I don't know who's going to be able to take that championship off him. I think Tim Storm had the best chance as of late, and that came up short. And then Ricky Morton, of course, also took him to his limits there. But, it's, man, it'll be interesting to see where we go. And, I mean, like I said, we always get surprises, so you never know what's going to happen. But, I mean, Nick Aldis is the guy, and he's the guy because he's going to fight and he's going to claw and he's going to try to stay the guy.
When you're the lead play-by-play announcer for the NWA, obviously, it's a big pressure spot to be under. There's a lot of old-school fans watching you, a lot of new-school fans kind of coming and wanting to see what this product's all about. What do you think about your role as the lead voice? I mean, you're the voice of the NWA right now.
One, it's super flattering, and it's kind of surreal. I'm still just that kid who was a fan during the Attitude Era, and and at one point in my career, I was one of those sort of really bad indie wrestlers that is probably not going to make it anywhere. I was one of those guys for several years, and to be in this position now, it's great. And I've probably never worked harder at something. As far as the research that goes into it, the prep that I do, it's a lot. But it's the old saying, if you do what you love, then it's not really a job. You're just doing what you love. And I love this business, and I love all the people that are associated with NWA Powerrr. And so every day I get to go and do some research on the history of the NWA, or I'm trying to think of new things to say about a particular wrestler or anything like that. Like, it really is just a privilege. I get to kind of sit there and smile and go, you know what, this is dope. This is really dope. And as far as, the pressure goes, I think I've got some sort of weird wiring in my brain. I'm just one of those people where it just doesn't connect in there for some reason. You know, there's some people that are deathly afraid to pick up a microphone and stand in front of a crowd or whatever, and I've never had that issue, which I think is why I've been able to be successful as a broadcast journalist and also in the professional wrestling world. And I don't know if it's just a natural thing where it just doesn't get to me, I guess. I've never really, I wouldn't say never, but I rarely ever get like butterflies or anything before a show or anything like that. And I don't know exactly why that is. I'm thankful that's the way it is, because it certainly makes life a lot easier for me to just go ahead and go and execute and just do the best I can. And I have to say the vast majority of people have been very complimentary of the work that I've done. And, you know, wrestling fans on those dirt sheets, they'll, if they don't like something, they'll let you know. And there's been a few that obviously I'm not their cup of tea, and that's fine. That's just the way it is. I mean, I've got personal preferences for people that I like to listen to with commentary, you know, and there's some people that I don't. And, you know, so I get it. And, you know, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to take the notes that I need to take from the office and from, you know, the boys and girls in the back that have been doing this for a long time. If they've got any pointers for me, I mean, I've learned so much from everybody on that NWA Powerrr team. Because you look at that roster, I mean, there's just decades and decades of experience. Even if you take the Rockable Express out, you still have, you know, guys like Eli Drake and Ken Anderson and ODB and, you know, people who've just been in this business for a very long time. And even though they don't, you know, do commentary, there's a lot they could tell me that will help me and be a better commentator too. So it's just great.
As far as being a broadcast journalist, and obviously, you know, touching on a little bit, news reporter, Emmy Award winning, you know, obviously working for the San Antonio News as well. Does that help you transition? Does that make you as smooth as you are as far as being able to, you know, commentate and connect with the wrestling fans?
You know, I think it does. And I think it's one of those things where one hand sort of washes the other. They have it's a very shared skill set, you know. And so the more you do one, the better you'll be at the other. Because at the end of the day, it's all storytelling. Whether it's, you know, I'm telling the story of, you know, the breaking news of the crime and, you know, this person shot this person or blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, I'm doing the story, you know, this is Thunder Rosa. She is a force to be reckoned with. Whether it's in the cage or in the squared circle, she's gunning for you. There's a lot of similarities to just getting that story across in a way that's emotionally engaging for an audience. And so I think the fact that I come from this world is one of the main reasons why David Lagana and William Patrick Corgan put me in the position that I'm in, because then that's what they want. They want that legitimacy that comes with being a professional journalist. That, geez, now I've been doing this for almost 10 years at this point. And I think it's really helpful. I tell you one thing, if I wasn't doing one, I don't see how I could be doing the other, at least not be doing it as well. And I'll tell you, especially when I don't, in my current position at Channel 4 here in San Antonio, I'm covering usually a lot of very serious topics, things like homicides and arsons and fires and sex crimes and all those sorts of things. But every once in a while, they kind of let me play, and I'll be able to do a more fun story, you know, the economic impact of the Alamo Bowl or something to that effect. And that's when I can really kind of let the commentators kind of slip into that role a little bit and have a little bit more fun with the writing and have a good time, you know, telling that story. And that's really when I kind of get to shine too, and it kind of gets to show both sides of that coin at the same time. So, but I think, yeah, it's been great that I have that skill set of both, and then I really get to drive it on home on NWA Powerrr. Just look at my last interview with Nick Aldis. You know, I pulled out the stack of questions that I had for him, and at that one, I took it upon myself of, you know, I've done all these interviews with Nick. He has this upper hand. I'm upset. I should let the world know that I'm upset. And so in that interview, I'm much more aggressive than I typically ever am. with Nick Aldis. And I think it came through really well. So there you go.
It was excellent. I love your chemistry together and how you guys play off of each other. Now, like, you're not backing down from him. He's been kind of BSing you for a little too long. So now now you go back at him. I really enjoy that because it adds a little dimension, a little bit of element, kind of your character that, like, okay, this guy, he is legit when he's talking, but he's also not going to just let these guys walk all over him.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I was going for.
So as far as you and the commentating and kind of leading the story and kind of being the voice of the NWA, like I said, do you see somebody as you're kind of coming through? Do you see maybe not even just somebody, maybe a couple somebody's breakout star, somebody you keep seeing on a weekly basis? Like, I want to see more of this person, or the fans wait till they get a load of this guy. He's going to be great. Have you seen some breakout stars?
Well, I'd have to say it's hard to pick because we don't have too many people who aren't that sort of caliber of a breakout star. There have been certainly some really big surprises that fans have really shown their attachment to, and Trevor Murdoch, I think, is a fantastic example. From day one of him coming out and being this humble but at the same point grizzled veteran who's there to prove himself, and he didn't have the contract, and he's fighting for the contract. I think a lot of people empathized with his story, and so he immediately became this, big fan favorite, and that was fantastic. And I think you couldn't say anything about being a fan favorite without mentioning the question mark. I don't believe that the question mark was a character that was supposed to have significant legs when it was originally thought up. But now he's basically a mainstay, and we're selling out his T-shirts like crazy because everybody wants those karate T-shirts, and including myself. I don't think I got one of the last taping, so I'm going to have to hopefully get one that's kind of put to the side for myself when I get there. But you never know what's going to happen, and you never know how a crowd's going to react, especially our NWA Powerrr crowd, which, they're just their own, supernova of energy. And when they decide to explode that energy out, you really can feel it. And so I think you also you can't put anything past Thunder Rosa. I think just having her as part of the show, immediately everybody was drawn to her. And then on top of that, when we did the Into the Cage series, I think that just kind of compounded people's love of Thunder Rosa, and them wanting to, they're chomping at the bit to watch her go toe-to-toe with Allison Kay, which has got to happen soon, because that's just the fight everybody wants as far as our women's division goes. I mean, you're probably more likely going to see Melina, who's put herself in the driver's seat as the head of that faction, but the fight everybody wants is Thunder Rosa versus AK-47 for sure.
There's no doubt about that. Thunder Rosa definitely got over huge with the crowd. Definitely is one of those breakout stars that I was thinking of, and of course I was thinking question mark as well, and then a guy like Ricky Starks. I feel like he's got a lot of legs to him as well.
Oh, Ricky Starks is fantastic. I mean, we've had the angle where Nick Aldis is talking about, this guy's my blue chip draft pick, number one. And Ricky Starks backs that up. I mean, the guy is super knowledgeable when it comes to the craft of professional wrestling. He's young, he's strong, he's brash. He's got a character that, some people feel weird about for some reason, but I think this enigmaticness that emits from him is actually going to help him out in the long run. And I think he's fantastic. And then you've got a lot of other guys out there that are sort of the unsung heroes that we've had there. And I think even if you took a guy like D-Man Dan Parker, who had a couple of matches, he is an amazing character. He's back up in Canada working shows there right now. And I'll tell you one thing, if you don't have D-Man Dan Parker, I don't think you have the question mark where the question mark is, because D-Man knew how to work that particular angle and put a question mark over to the point to where he was. So it's every person that steps into the NWA arena and gets into that ring, they're all fantastically talented people, and they're all breakout stars in their own right. And what's great is having this weekly broadcast, we're going to be able to feature them all. And it might take a little bit of time. You might not see that person for a couple of episodes, but we're sticking around and we're developing stories, and you're going to see these cast of characters go toe-to-toe in that ring.
I love a lot of just kind of the random things like Aaron Stevens with question mark has been great, and kind of what he's been able to do, kind of revitalize himself. You mentioned Trevor Murdoch revitalizing himself. You think that's a cool aspect of the NWA, these guys that may be down and out or down in their luck or maybe even just, not heard from in years? Isn't that kind of cool? They can kind of come back and reinvent themselves?
I think, I forget who used the term first, but it is sort of, at some points, it's an island of misfit toys. These particular people did not work in certain situations in companies like WWE or perhaps companies like Impact or whatever, or maybe their time just kind of expired there because, you can only work at a certain place for so long, and then you want to find and try other things. But we've been able to cultivate these people that have this enormous talent, and we've kind of given them a soapbox to stand on, and maybe not as tight of a leash as they were used to. And so when you kind of give them a little bit of freedom and you let them stretch their wings and you let them do the thing that they know they're the best at doing, the outcome is spectacular for everyone. And I think that's what's really great about our show. And, people talk about, oh, man, I wish NWA Powerrr was on, a cable station, like you actually had a television station or something like that. Well, when you do something like that, you lose a little bit of your power. You start putting your power into the hands of other people who have to answer to shareholders and things like that. And so that might require you to, put that leash a little tighter on somebody, and then you don't get as good of a product as you want. So when people out there, and I do these interviews and folks ask hey, when are you going to see a TV deal with NWA Powerrr? I would be more than happy for us to stay where we are as long as it's profitable forever. I don't have a problem with it at all. As long as we get to keep control, and as long as the people at the very top and the people like Billy Corgan and Dave Lagana, they're coming up with these ideas and they're working with the talent that we have to come up with this show that's super refreshing and is really a big draw for a lot of people. Let's keep it that way. And so I think that's what's going to make us strong and what's going to make us last, and, see where we go from here.
I do love that sink or swim kind of mentality and the freedom you have on promos, because you could tell some guys really excel, maybe some guys don't, but I love watching because the promos aren't going to be scripted. That those guys are going to be okay, maybe they're given a certain time, hey, you got 5 minutes or whatever, but they're going to say, hey, here it is. Go for it. See what you got. Yep. Nick Aldis, home runs physically and literally always hits those home runs.
Oh, yeah, he does like doing that.
And Tim Storm knocking it out of the park with his promos. I love that you could tune into the show, yes, for the wrestling, but the promos kind of get you hooked.
Oh, they're fantastic, and they're so integral, and they're so important to our broadcast, and they're important for the legacy of the NWA. Like I mentioned, if you go, the easiest thing for folks either on YouTube or on the network to go watch those old, Mid-South and Georgia Championship Wrestling, and you saw just how important those promos are, and especially when you take a look at the ones with Harley Race or with Ric Flair or anybody like that. And, us being able to do that and to have these guys and these women who are so good at being able to pick up a mic and be believable. I mean, that's the biggest thing of all time is people just have to be able to believe you. You have to know who you are and communicate that with that microphone through that camera and to the 275 plus people that are in the arena. And you're right. I think the sink or swim thing is very appropriate with ours because we don't do takes. You know, I mean, we are live to tape and we're going. And if you screw up, you screw up. We go. Just like if you were doing it on theater, just like if it was every show was a pay-per-view. But what's great is, you know, you say sink or swim, but it's like all of our talent are Olympic-level swimmers. You don't need to worry about them sinking. They might struggle a little bit. There might be something where maybe something doesn't work or you forget a line that you were hoping to get off or something like that. But that's few and far between. And I think also people kind of identify with that. You know, they identify with the fact that somebody's thinking of a thought and trying to converse their way through it, you know, in the same way that we do during this interview or anything like that, you know. And I think that's just so special. And that's what really draws people to our product, because I think maybe some of the other companies out there, they either don't feature it, an interview or a promo in that way, or maybe they just don't have the faith in their talent to do certain promos like that, and so they rely, and it's, you know, really, really heavy into the wrestling, and the people need to have a story. They need to know who the good guy is and the bad guy is. They need to know why they care, you know. Excuse me.
It's really cool to kind of see that, the good guy, bad guy, but the promos, the way that they're able to just do it, you could tell they're not scripted. You could tell they're from the heart. You could tell they're sincere. It's one of those things, maybe some guy surprises you, like, wow, like now I'm kind of hooked on the character. Now I want to see what happens next. Anything happen as far as you watching some of these promos and just say, like, wow, I didn't expect it out of that guy, but now, I'm even more invested in him. Like, wow, what a great promo.
You know, I got to say, all this stuff with Aaron Stevens has all been fantastic. You know, the early goings of the stuff and him being in the thespian from Hollywood and him coming out in the tights and then coming out and wrestling in the flesh gear with the pink neon pads and all that other sort of stuff. But his concept, putting himself over as this fantastic act, that was all so good. And that was all, like, none of that was written on a page anywhere. That was all very, very, Aaron and David and Billy all kind of coming together, and a lot of that's Aaron in there, and that's all been fantastic. Allison Kay does a fantastic promo, and I think maybe a lot of people didn't know that about her before our program too. And I don't know if she's been given that spotlight and that availability to do that in other places where she's worked, to get enough time to work that microphone. But there's definitely a huge amount of emotion that she's been able to pull as the NWA World's Women's Champion and the person who's got the target on their back and, just can't seem to get ahead of Melina and all the other sort of stuff. And you could tell that she's passionate about it. She's passionate that she's lost her friend, Marty Bell, and all of that comes through on the microphone. And, I think what you're going to see, especially when we've got NWA Girl Power coming up and a lot of these sit-down sort of interviews and discussions that they're having, at ringside, that are going to be, they're very revealing, and they're very in the raw. And I think that's what people really like about it, is the rawness of it. It's like watching rock and roll live,
What do you think you're going to be in another 5 years? You said you can't see certain things. Obviously, you still want to be a part of the wrestling business. Do you still love doing the news report? Like, kind of where do you see yourself going to be?
That's an excellent question, and I would love to be able to transition and just kind of do wrestling commentary full time. And I think I might be kind of close to where I'm at today to be able to do that. But on the other hand, I make very good money being a broadcast journalist, and it's very consistent work, and it's work that I'm good at. And so it's kind of hard to walk away from that too. But it all is going to just depend on that. I mean, and I could always do both for basically forever, as long as you can find management that's willing to work with you. So even if I could get to the point where it's more of a part-time thing, doing more freelance for television news sort of deal, so I could focus more on doing professional wrestling on a more full-time basis for, because I also call for a lot of other smaller promotions here in San Antonio, Texas. River City Wrestling, I do commentary for some of their programs that they put out and stuff like that. And I've had other organizations that are around here that have reached out, and I've had other organizations that have watched NWA Powerrr, and they're looking for me to call their matches, and they'll just, email me the video, and I'll do it from home, So there's definitely the market out there for me to just kind of do commentary, which is fantastic. So I think I'm getting right there, but we'll just see. We'll just see what the world holds for me, and I'm just kind of an open book, and we're going to see which way the sales or the winds are going to push my sail.